Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are the Times football reporter Charlotte Dunker and chief sports writer for The Sun, Dave Kidd. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages. Ahead of a bumper weekend, The Telegraph uses the image of Pep Guardiola with the scratch on his nose. Their headline, City crisis leaves scar, but Pep can go again. Guardiola's ready to dig deep to revive champions after shocking fall from grace, writes Jason Burt. In The Sun, Dave's paper, sacks and the City. Pep, if I hadn't won so much, I would be in trouble. And they carry the news of Ruud van Nistelrooy, driven Ruud in at Foxes. Plus, Ruben Amorim has been praising Mason Mount. Catch Me If You Can is the headline in The Times. They've got an exclusive interview with four-time F1 drivers world champion Max Verstappen. Of course, the Qatar Grand Prix this weekend, but he's already champ. The Guardian lead with Pep Guardiola and Sunday's huge game at Liverpool. Day of reckoning. Anfield awaits tomorrow for a chaotic City desperate to stop the rot. OK, Charlotte, I'll come to you first with The Telegraph then. We saw it a moment ago, but City crisis leaves scar, but Pep can go again. Deep thought piece this by Jason Burt, friend of the show. With his side set for a crunch trip to Liverpool tomorrow, Guardiola is ready to dig deep to revive champions after shocking fall from grace. Charlotte, as someone who's no doubt covered a lot of Guardiola's wonderful story in England, how intriguing is this to see if and how he turns this around?
Yeah, it's massive. And when you say how, I think we've all become accustomed to Pep Guardiola and Manchester City finding a way, no matter what problems he's had in the past. He loses players like David Silva, then Fernandinho. He manages to rebuild teams. He plays without a striker for a season and manages to win the league. He puts a defender into midfield. He finds all these ways to get around problems that he's had in the past, and still Manchester City have managed to win time and time and time again. So when you say it, like the question, can he do it again? I think we all just expect that he can, because he's done it so many times before. It just seems inconceivable that Pep Guardiola won't be able to solve these problems that's facing him at the minute. And I think maybe one of the most surprising things that he said in that press conference was that he's baffled by Manchester City's struggles at the moment, which you don't really expect him to say. Like, maybe they go on a couple of games where they lose things and he thinks, this is the problem, this is where it's going wrong, and I know how to tweak things because I'm Pep Guardiola and I've changed the face of football over the last decade, and I know exactly where things have gone wrong and how to fix them. So it is a really, really interesting time to see what it is he's going to do, and obviously what a huge game for them on Sunday as well.
Absolutely massive. Liverpool v Man City, which is on a banner at the back page of your paper, Dave. Liverpool versus Man City tomorrow, 4 p.m. Sacks and the City. Nice play on words there. Pep, if I hadn't won so much, I would be in trouble. Dave, how impressed were you by his candour? Because he's got a point, hasn't he? That there's a safety blanket that he's got here because of the success, but other managers might be worrying about their future.
Yeah, clearly most managers in the Premier League after a run like that would be in severe trouble. We're worried about their job security, but Guardiola's won 6 titles in the last 7 years, and as Charlotte was saying, pretty much reinvented football. I mean, the guy's a genius. He's not going to get sacked, but it is intriguing to watch him struggling like this. We haven't seen it, not just in those 8 years or so at City, but also before that at Bayern Munich, then before that at Barcelona. He's always been at clubs that have been successful, that have won titles consistently. In nearly 20 years as a coach, there's never been anything remotely like this. And then to go to a ground, Anfield, where he's never won in front of a crowd. The only time City have won in the last 20 odd years was during the behind closed doors pandemic season. It would be quite something to pull off a result on Sunday. I mean, this is a fixture that's been compelling for so many years, and this time around, it looks like a home banker, just looking at the form book. But we know the Premier League. You never know what to expect. If City could pull this one off, then the whole narrative around the club changes overnight. But at the moment, I do find it absolutely intriguing to see. I mean, the final game actually was probably worse than any of the defeats in a way, because 3-0 up against a Dutch side, relatively average side, I'd say. To not see that game out in the last 20 minutes really was extraordinary.
Yeah, quite the capitulation, wasn't it? Charlotte, as we've noticed on your paper's front page of the sports supplement, dominated by Max and Formula One, and why not? But Pep is covered on the back page. At the top right, I won't run away. Pep full of plenty of defiance and intensity as ever today, Charlotte. But do you think he knows what's needed now? As Dave alludes to there, in 16, 17 years as a head coach or manager, he's never really had to lift the team in such a bleak run.
Well, it's interesting because when everyone was talking about whether he was going to sign a new deal, stay at the club, and a lot of the questions that were being put to him is, what next? How do you challenge yourself? Well, I don't think this is possibly the challenge that he thought was coming, but he's certainly got a new challenge because this is something that he's not used to. But I think he knew that I think he sort of foresaw this a little bit, because if you look at the cycles that City have gone through, this is probably what he's looking to rebuild, like maybe his full squad here. If you went back to the beginning days, there was Company, Aguero, David Silva, that team that first won the league. Then you went into the next team with like Fernandinho there in that role instead of David Silva. And then we've gone into the treble winners, and now we're moving on from that. It's how does he rebuild this squad? I think he knew that himself. I think he knew it wasn't going to be as easy as it has been in the past. And I think he doesn't want to leave City in a position like when Sir Alex Ferguson left Manchester United, they were in that transition period. I think if he wanted to leave, he wants to leave them in a strong position. He knows there's going to be challenges. So I'm not surprised that he's saying he doesn't want to run away, because this is a totally different challenge for him, and maybe not the exact sort of challenge that he wanted. But if he wanted something different to test himself, then he certainly got that with his team 6 without a win.
Big challenge, isn't it? Brighton nudging above them in the Premier League table on the head-to-head record, up to second as well. Guardian, Dave, day of reckoning. Nice headline. Anfield awaits tomorrow for a chaotic City desperate to stop the rot. Jonathan Liu writing on the inside of the Guardian pages for them as well. And Jamie Jackson on the front. Margin for error. Guardiola says past glories protect him from City acts. Just a quote here, Dave. He says, it's not normal in the big clubs to do the results we have, but we have to accept it. What's for sure, I want to stay. I want to do it. He's always talked about his affection for the club, Dave, hasn't he? Do you believe he's staying now for a rebuild, that perhaps he's just misjudged Father Time's effect on his squad? It's come earlier than he thought.
Yeah, it does. It suddenly feels as though the squad's got old. We weren't saying that 6 months ago, so it can't quite be true. But you suddenly look around. The thing is, this is the way we work in our game, really. When results are bad, you start looking for excuses. Actually, six games ago, there was nothing wrong with City's squad. So, but there are a lot of players at the wrong side of 30. I thought they're bringing Gundogan back, although he's been a brilliant player for them. He's a wonderful player for them. To bring him back a year after he went to Barcelona seemed like a slightly retrograde step to me. I don't think their recruitment's been quite as good the last couple of summers as it has been for many years before that. And then suddenly things just collapse, and just at the very time at Liverpool are unstoppable under Slot. I mean, they are more consistent than they were under Klopp, when they were remarkably consistent in a couple of those seasons. I think it's something like 17 wins from 19 games, something like that, under Slot. Liverpool are just a machine at the moment. And we know that we've seen the really great Guardiola teams melt at Anfield and go 2 or 3 down in 15, 20 minutes. We've seen that a few occasions. With this team now, looking, scared of their own shadows at times when they're defending, even against Feyenoord. The form book suggests a really convincing Liverpool win, but who knows?
Yeah, Dave, give us a prediction before we move on then, because I'll get on from Charlotte in a second as well.
I'll go 2-1 to City then.
2-1 to City, but the trend, I like it. Well, back page of the Eye, just out of interest, says win or bust, City's title defence hanging by the thread. What do you think, Charlotte? Could they pull something off? Dave's going for, I guess you call it an underdog win, even if it is Man City.
I think Liverpool will win on Sunday, but I don't think that is the end of the Manchester City in the title conversation. We've seen them come back before from 8-9. I think it was even 10 points for a day back in maybe 18-19, and they managed to overcome that deficit and still lift the title. We know that Manchester City, history tells us that they always manage to find a way to come through, and they always manage to click through the gears and go on a winning run, maybe to end the season. So I definitely wouldn't write them off if they do lose on Sunday. I do think, given the strength of Liverpool, the way they've started this season has been unbelievable. The result against Madrid as well, they'll be flying high, so much confidence, know they're missing Kanate, so that's a bit of a blow for them in defence, but they've got other players who can step into that position as well. So I think it will be a home win. I think another good win for Liverpool, but I don't think that is the end of talking about Manchester City in the title race for this season.
Compulsive viewing anyway, isn't it, on Sky Sports on Sunday, come what may there. As may Ruud van Nistelrooy at Leicester. Let's come to that story, Dave, in your paper as well. Graham Hill reporting on the back page, just on the sidebar on the left there. Driven Ruud in at Foxes. Ruud van Nistelrooy was saluted for his quote-unquote winning mentality as Leicester confirmed him as their new boss. Dave, how do you think they know that much about his mentality? Just are they leaning more on the playing days, or what's your take on this appointment?
Yeah, it's quite old school to go for. There's not been too many great players in recent years who've been really successful in management in the Premier League. Van Nistelrooy had a decent season or so at Feyenoord, I think, and a good few games in charge at United, mainly beating Leicester. I think he did that on a couple of occasions in those few games. I saw interestingly Jamie Vardy had sort of broken Van Nistelrooy's record of scoring in consecutive Premier League games back in Leicester's title season, sort of 9 years ago now. And suddenly Van Nistelrooy was his manager. There was I think Vardy was tweeting Van Nistelrooy at the time when they were tweeting each other when he broke that record. Vardy obviously is the last man standing from that great Leicester side. I think it's a difficult job, Leicester, because they've had that incredible success in 2016. And then winning the FA Cup and finishing fifth a couple of times under Rodgers and really Brendan Rodgers and sort of threatening to get back into the Champions League there. Expectations are fairly high, even though it's actually a newly promoted squad. I think actually in many ways it's harsh to have sacked Cooper after 12 games when they're not in the bottom three as a newly promoted team. But clearly the football wasn't great to watch. But Van Nistelrooy, it feels like a shot in the dark, really. He's not got a great managerial pedigree, so it'll be interesting to see. But he's a great name, a great character, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes.
Charlotte, back page of the Express has Ruud's job is to save Foxes. Joshua Peck reporting there. He's had one experience, hasn't he? He's been a head coach or manager at PSV Eindhoven, but they're one of the big boys in Eredivisie. He's had a long time as a coach, but how challenging is this, Charlotte, as a first job in the Premier League to keep Leicester up?
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. But I think if you read his interviews that he's done already, he's already saying the right things to win the fans over, which we know Steve Cooper didn't manage to do because of his links with Forest. He's talking about how the style of football he's going to get them playing, how he's spoken to Maresca and Maresca's told him what a great club it is to work for, and how he's going to be getting them playing attractive, attacking football, which is one thing saying it and another thing doing it. I think we've seen before clubs that get promoted, and we'll look at Southampton, which I'm sure we're going to come on to. The style of football they want to play isn't normally sustainable after they've been promoted. So if Van Nistelrooy thinks he's going to go in there and overhaul the way that they've been playing this season and suddenly start picking up loads of points, then he might have a bit of a rude awakening. But like you said, he's not really got that experience. I know a lot of people at Manchester United, all the players were so complimentary about him. I think he will be able to go in there and lift them because he's got that gravitas. They're going to listen to what he's saying. He holds himself really well. He was really good with the media. I think from that aspect, he's a really good appointment. I'm going to be interested to see who he takes with him as his backroom staff in terms of who can help him maybe tactically and who can help them actually get those points that they do need to push up the table. They're not in the bottom three at the minute. They're going to want to stay there, and they're hoping that he's the right man for the job, but maybe it is a little bit of a risk.
Indeed, it seems, Dave, that Steve Cooper wasn't widely kind of received well by the Leicester fans, possibly because of the Forest connections. Back page of the Star has Fox's hire van, and quotes from Van Nistelrooy: "I'm proud, I'm excited. Everybody I speak to about Leicester City Football Club is enthusiastic." Dave, do you think that time at Manchester United, and as Charlotte says, the way he conducted himself in the media, the presence, the aura, has that swayed Leicester here, bring a bit of energy and magnetism to the city?
Yeah, he looks the part, doesn't he? The old roll neck sweaters. He looks very stylish. He looks, and he talks a good game. And we know what a great player he was at United, and we know, he's got great pedigree, great contacts in the game. There's a lot going for him. I think it's interesting. We always used to say years ago, I go back a few years, that when a great ex-player comes in as a manager, there's instant respect, and so it was always these guys would get jobs pretty quickly in their careers. Less so now. I think now younger players are used to sort of career coaches who are, who weren't great players, as most of the top managers weren't these days, and it's a slightly different mindset as the an great ex player comes into a dressing room, puts his medals on the table, and everyone instantly respects him. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case as much as it was a few years ago.
Interesting case study then to see if some of those old methods still hold true. Dave and Charlotte, thank you very much for now. Charlotte mentioned the Southampton game. We'll talk about that match against Brighton soon, and we'll focus on the game at the Amex, and also as well we'll talk about Manchester United a little bit perhaps. This is In the Sun. Ruben Amorim on Mason Mount. I just love that kid. Welcome back. You are watching Back Pages tonight, and it's welcome back to the Times football reporter Charlotte Dunker and the chief sports writer for The Sun, Dave Kidd. Let's go to the Express. Brighton v Southampton had more than 10 minutes of stoppage time, so very late for a lot of the papers, but they have got a picture, I think, of Flynn Downs on the back page of the Express. Brighton 1, Southampton 1. Saints make a valid point. A point for Southampton, Brighton top. But Dave, how frustrated will Southampton be about that VAR decision, I think, which you referenced in our WhatsApp group earlier?
I mean, 5 minutes to decide on an offside decision, and we've seen it so many times. You feel sorry for everyone inside the ground there. You feel sorry for Southampton. I think it was probably the right decision. I always tend to feel, the old, I think it's Bill Shankly quote about, if a player's not interfering with play, what's he doing on the pitch? I sort of tend towards that sort of view. But we have 3.5 minutes, I think, of trying to decide whether Archer's onside or offside. He's very, very narrowly onside, and then Armstrong is interfering with play anyway. So that 3.5 minutes was wasted. I can't stand VAR, and as somebody who actually pays and goes to watch football as well on my days off, I can't bear it. I hate the fact I can't celebrate a goal. I hate the fact we're hanging around for 5 minutes in a game which should be spontaneous. But yeah, I mean, a real frustration for Southampton, because that would have been a massive win to go to Brighton and win. And they played well second half, and they play good football for long spells and then concede comedy goals in most matches. I quite enjoy watching them. Guardiola was people were sort of taking a mick a bit when Guardiola was praising them to the hilt the other week. When City was still winning and they beat Southampton 1-0, and he was full of praise. I sort of got what he meant. I thought Southampton, they really are. They're a good watch. They just haven't got enough points.
They haven't, no. They're 4 points from safety, still just a one win so far. Sunweb picking up this story, though. Russell Martin, who's very cool and composed usually, not happy after the match. A farcical Brighton 1, Southampton 1 is the headline. Fuming Martin has to be held back from Hertzler after controversial VAR call denies him win. I'm not sure why there was antagonism between the two head coaches. What did you make of that, Charlotte? Is that just everything getting to Martin, or is Fabian Hertzler winding him up there?
I think he's had to take a lot of stick, hasn't he, from the start of the season? He's constantly fielding questions about the style of play that his team's playing, whether it's right, whether they're going to pick up enough points. And he always knew that this team was going to be involved in a relegation battle. And when he stood there and seen his team, first half performance wasn't that great, but second half that they were really much improved. And then that farcical VAR decision, I think he's going to be annoyed on the. We don't know what he said to him, do we, Hertzler? Maybe he's made a little comment that's annoyed him, but I think his anger levels are probably going to be high having watched that. I think afterwards, a testament to Southampton players as well, because after that VAR decision, you thought their heads could have gone down. You thought they could very easily have lost that game after that decision went against them, but they didn't. They stuck in their vital point away for them, going somewhere like Brighton as well, with the form that they're in and the points that they've picked up this season and the teams that they've beaten. A lot of people were just writing Southampton off tonight, and I think after the first half, a lot of people would have thought, how many are Brighton going to win by? And then especially that VAR decision, I don't know, I thought it was harsh. I didn't really think that he was interfering with play enough to disallow it. But I'm with Dave, if it takes 5 minutes for video referees to decide whether to allow it or not, it just saps all the enjoyment out of it for every single person, whether you're in the ground, whether you're watching it on TV, for the players, for the managers, for every single person that's involved with that game. It is farcical, as the pun in that headline says. And I'm not surprised if Russell Martin was angry at that. He's more well within his rights to be annoyed at it.
Yeah, definitely time for a couple of tea breaks at least there, Dave. Let's talk about Brighton and your storied journalistic career. You've probably written about some compelling underdog stories. Where does the rise of Brighton rank, though, up to second in the Premier League?
Oh yeah, I remember watching them at the Withdean Stadium in what I think was probably called the third division, then the fourth tier of football, without a proper home of their own, playing at Gillingham. I mean, the whole rise over the years is outstanding, and they keep making left field managerial appointments of people you've probably barely ever heard of, and they come in and do brilliant jobs. That their recruitment is outstanding. They'll pick up a gem from Japan or Ecuador or wherever on the globe. And we're getting used to it now, and they are actually second. They'll feel it as an opportunity lost. I mean, I think with that game tonight, having led 1-0 against a team at the bottom of the table, the Wolves game when they were 2 up and conceded 2 late goals, they should feel they should be actually pretty quite close to Liverpool. That's how good they've been. They are a phenomenon, and they are the best run football club in the country.
Yep, certainly something to look at as well for better funded clubs like Manchester United down the years who go to Everton. We got a headline here from Ruben Amorim. I just love that kid on the back page of the Sun, Charlotte. It's talking about Mason Mount. Could this be a big revival from Mount under Amorim? What's your read on the situation here? And what appeals to him in terms of Mason Mount's qualities?
I think that everyone at Manchester United will be hoping that it is the rebuilding of Mason Mount. I think obviously they spent £60 million on him. We've not really seen him hit the heights for a number of reasons. He's struggled with injuries, which has been unfortunate. But I think what Amorim's saying there in those quotes is that, bear in mind, when Amorim came in, a lot of these players were on international duty. He's not had much time to work with them. Mount is one of the players that's been in there from the start. He's been able to start embedding this new system into players like him from the very beginning. And I think this 3-4-3 system that he plays, Mount allowing to play as the attacking midfielder alongside the striker, like we saw last night against Bodo Glimt. He was influential in the third winning goal for them. I think, maybe that is the best role for him, because I think a lot of people, when they signed, wondered how are Manchester United going to get the best out of Mason Mount. He impresses as a number 10, but Bruno Fernandes plays as a number 10, so he was never going to push him out of the team. So maybe now a new manager has come in, he's got fresh ideas, he's got a new system, he can play him off the left, he can play him off the right, further up the pitch. Maybe this is how we are going to see the best out of Mason Mount. But yeah, lots of effusive praise from Ruben Amorim, which can only do wonders for his confidence as well. Maybe an arm around the shoulder, few extra minutes is going to help him, and we're going to start to see the best of Mason Mount.
Lots of energy. You've got 20 seconds, Dave, I'm afraid, to wrap up the show. How optimistic are you from what you've seen of Amorim and Manchester United so far for their club?
It's not been great so far, but and no one's he hasn't got a magic wand. That squad is poor. But I'd like to see Mount do well. He's not the first manager who's loved him. Lampard at Chelsea, Southgate at England. It'd be great to see Mount come a game because he's a terrific talent.
Absolutely, bags of energy, which perhaps Manchester United need at the moment. Charlotte Dunker, Dave Kidd, pleasure having your company on Backpages tonight. Enjoy the football over the weekend. Speak to you again soon.